Hi, this is Naveen Nanjundappa. Let us look at the interesting question that one of my students sent me. How to measure the performance of a Scrum team? Now, before we get into how to measure a performance of a Scrum team, let us go ahead and have some thought process behind why do we even measure? What do we measure? And what is the importance of this measurement? You should always remember that we go ahead and measure only when we want to inspect and adapt the given situation. Or when we want to be more effective and efficient, then we go ahead and measure. Or if you have some symptoms, then you go ahead and measure. So you're going to measure in three conditions: when you want to inspect and adapt the situation, when you want to take an effective and efficient actions, or you have a symptoms in the given situation and you want to solve those problems. Then you go ahead and measure. Now, with that as a context, if we go ahead and ask the same question, how to measure the performance of a Scrum team, I would rather go ahead and change this into what is the purpose of measuring the performance of a Scrum team? Why are we going to measure this? Do you want to inspect and adapt on the performance of a Scrum team? If the answer is yes, then you probably want to go ahead and look at what are the things that hinder the performance of a Scrum team. And this could be the values that are missing in the Scrum team, the practices that are not in line with the structure and the culture of the organization, the management support that is missing, the team's composition not being effective, the team itself is not self-organizing, the performance of the team is not high because the team did not get sufficient time to go through the stages of forming, storming, norming, and performing. Probably there is no mentor or a coach to take the team to the performing stage. And the project could be complicated and complex, and hence there is a lot of inspect and adapt required, and hence the performance is relatively less than it is considered. I hope you got a lot of points here. The point is, in order to measure the performance of a team, you can have 10 different ways. But then the moment you shift your thought process into why are we going to measure the performance of the team and what is hindering our performance of the team, then you have a lot of opportunities. You can go ahead and solve these problems that I just mentioned even without having any kind of measurements. Yes. If you have to build the team as a self-organizing team, you don't need any measurement. You can directly go ahead, have a coach who is going to look at how the team's collaboration is building up, and then take the team from the forming stage, storming, norming, and performing stages. Check the conditions of a Scrum team where the skill set required and the collaborative mindset required is that established within the team. Maybe you may also want to look at, is the support from the management high? Think over, there are a lot of different things that you may want to do even without measuring the performance of the Scrum team. Now let us come to a second context for all those people who want to just measure the performance of a Scrum team. You can go ahead and measure in various different ways. The most popular one is measuring the velocity of the team. I'm not a strong advocate of measuring the velocity because the moment you go ahead with a velocity, it is like a cricket team's run rate. This is only for an anticipation and a number which is for the teams to self-organize. For example, if a cricket team, the team which is batting or chasing a number, let's say India is batting second and they're chasing a score of 300. When you look at the run rate, if the required run rate is 7 runs per over and the current run rate is 6 runs per over, it is an indication that at the current rate we may not be able to achieve the goal, so we have to speed up, which means we have to take some additional risk and speed up. And if the current run rate is 8 runs per over and the required is 7 runs per over, it is an indication that we can slow down. But at any given point of time, the run rate does not indicate in the next coming up over, the team is going to hit 6 runs or 7 runs or 8 runs. It is an average performance of the team over a period of time. It's a statistical average. Similarly, the velocity can only be considered as an average to forecast on a release note rather than holding the team accountable for its absolute performance. So velocity is the most popular way to measure the performance of a team, but it can be completely messed up, misused. So, do I advocate a velocity-driven measurement of purpose? Probably not. And my guidance is, even if you want to measure it, use it very similar to the cricket score's run rate. The other way that you can measure the performance of a Scrum team is through the say-do ratio. How much do the teams say that we can do in a given sprint, and how much do they actually do? Let's say the team during the sprint planning meeting come up saying that we can pick up 10 items into the sprint and we can plan for this with available capacity. But then at the end of the sprint, they actually finish 8 or probably even 11. Now, If the performance is measured based on the say-do ratio, which is the number of items the team pulled that they can do it, and then actually what they did, this can again be a very, very misused number. Yes, it is very popular, but it can be misused because it is like saying, hey, the batsman, you promised to hit 7 runs, but you only did 6 runs. So you are bad. That puts an additional pressure and also kind of performance degradation because you're not appreciating how important it is to finish even those 8 or 6. So there is a popular say-do ratio that is measured. Again, it can be completely messed up, and instead of helping you gauge the performance of the team and help them get to the next level, it can even get into a stage where you're decreasing the performance of the Scrum team. Similarly, there are a lot more, like number of hours, the capacity the team is utilized properly, the team spending on unwanted work, the team spending on unplanned work, a lot of things. So now let me go ahead and give you some interesting way of thinking at the performance of a Scrum team. One of the ways to look at the performance of a Scrum team is how adaptable the Scrum team is during the sprint. We know that the sprint goal is fixed, which is an objective that the whole team is focusing on, and making the tasks or the product backlog items chosen into the sprint as a variable, we're going to go ahead and give the maximum adaptability to respond to any changes or any new learning during the sprint. This means the team builds up on their capabilities, collaboration, and work towards one single objective during the sprint. Measuring how the teams perform as a self-organizing team, focusing on a single goal and trying to achieve that is a better measure of progress or a performance. The second one, you can measure the values that the teams demonstrate. The stronger the teams demonstrate the Scrum values, the higher the performance probably. Certainly, if the values are at a lesser number, then performance is 100% going to be degraded. Let's say the values of Scrum, which are like commitment, focus, courage. If there is a high value demonstration of the Scrum teams on courage, commitment, to work in a complex zone, to work on tough problems, I think the performance is automatically increasing. The next, the performance of a Scrum team can be measured through how the teams help each other. The team members help each other during the sprint. When we start asking for help and offering help, the day the company and the teams get into a mode of asking for help is good, offering help is good, automatically the performance of the team improves. So now if you notice, all that I'm trying to do is to measure something that helps me to improve the performance of a Scrum team rather than blindly saying this is the performance of a Scrum team. So I'm going to go ahead and let you think over and put it in the comment section. What are the measurements that you have been doing for the performance of a Scrum team, and how are you using that number? In fact, are you just focused on measuring the performance of a Scrum team, or are you interested in improving the performance of a Scrum team? Go ahead, put your questions and comments. If you have any other questions similar to this and you want some thought-provoking comments on or the responses, please do put that or send it to me. This is Naveen Nanjundappa from 12 Principles Consulting. Thank you so much.